Hi, and welcome to Lightbox, the WAnimate podcast, the official podcast of WAnimate, the West Australian Animation Association. Whether you're an aspiring animator, a seasoned professional, or simply a fan of the magical world of animation, you've come to the right place. My name is Tanya Beeson, and let me put myself up on the screen as well as my co-hosts.
Hi, I'm David O'Connell.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Flay.
And we'll be your guide on this monthly journey into the heart of the animation industry in Western Australia. Each month, Lightbox will bring you the latest and greatest in animation news from upcoming films, shows, to industry discussions, and who will inspire and empower the talented animators who call Western Australia home. We'll also delve into the creative processes and challenges faced by our local animators as they work tirelessly to bring the unique visions to life. So buckle up and get ready to be amazed as we explore the vibrant, ever-evolving world of West Australian animation. This is Lightbox, and we're just getting started.
All right.
Drink. Okay. Before we get started, we do wish to acknowledge and honour the traditional custodians of the land we are streaming from, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We recognise and celebrate their enduring culture, the rich tapestry of Indigenous arts, and the invaluable contributions they have made to the vibrancy and cultural diversity of this city and this region. Always was, always will be. Okay.
And before we dive into today's content, and we're going to need it today, I'd like to issue a quick advisory warning. Look, our channel is generally suitable for most audiences, but there may be occasions when we delve into topics or showcase content that might not be appropriate for younger viewers. We strive to create engaging and enjoyable content for everyone, but please be advised that some material may not be suitable for children. So parental discretion is advised, and we encourage you to review the content before sharing it with younger audiences. Look, our goal is to provide a safe and enjoyable viewing experience for all, and we appreciate your understanding and support.
Cool. Excellent. So, right. Where are we at? We are obviously going to be talking about Ralph Bakshi as promised a little bit later, and that's why the advisory. Ralph does delve
adult,
into topics,
shall we say?
Yeah, of an adult nature.
He's renowned for having the first X-rated cartoon.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
American X-rated.
It is
X-rated that was public screened, or is it just
public screen? It would have been late 60s, early 70s.
We'll get into that.
Let's a long time ago now.
Let's dive into things that we need to talk about, like the 3:30 Awards night, which is Monday night coming. So tickets are available. They should be on the link wherever you're searching through this, through Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. If you are watching, just have a look at around the window of there'll be a link to get tickets for the 3:30 Awards night. And come along, see the films, see what was scored and what wins. I'm really looking forward to this year. It's good because even though I'm the chair of WAnimate, I normally leave it to the night to see the films. It all goes to the judges and is organised by Travis without me seeing the films until the night. So I quite enjoy it. So we'll
we have a strong showing from high school students this year.
Yes, so our school contingent was our largest category this year. So interesting. Very
It's
cool.
very surprising. Maybe COVID did something.
Maybe.
Yeah, it was good.
See how we go. Okay. Also, this weekend.
No, not this weekend.
Hold on.
No, next weekend.
Yes. So hold on. I've said Monday the 7th of August. So it's a week and a bit away. Not next Monday. The Monday after.
Yes.
Gives me a chance to get the screen.
Okay, I can relax a little bit. De-stress. So many things on it. Okay.
It's definitely festival season, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But Pixel Expo is on in the days before, so the 5th and 6th of August, so the 2 days before. We have a table. WAnimate will be there. We'll be demonstrating the latest Wacom Cintiq monitor, and there is a raffle to win a Wacom Intuos Pro at our desk. So come and have a chat. Come and talk to us. Get involved in the animation industry. If you want to find out where you can study animation, you can definitely come and talk to us, because we'll be pointing you in to the course that will suit you best. So
Definitely.
awesome. And cool. Let's see.
What else do we have?
Next slide. We're on to the news. And there's been some news. Not much in the way of pictures, but in terms of what we're doing, like let's start with what's going on, the unionization of the animation under the Animation Guild for Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network. So the layoffs of the last couple of years of the animation studios have obviously got a lot of animators worried, and because they're always working, like there's multiple Warner Brothers animated movies coming out every year, superhero movies, those sorts of things. The idea that they're going to unionize is kind of a good thing, being the socialist that I am.
Well, I think we need something. It's
well, they definitely do. Workers' rights in the US is a little bit.
Well, they're always bad at the best of times.
And
things like the games industry is not far behind them. So.
We're not judging you, America, but we are.
And we can see how that's played out for the Writers Guild and the actors, both on strike at this moment in time.
Yeah. They have the capacity to shut down, but California, LA has essentially the monetary income due to its film industry of several small countries. So, it's definitely a area where workers' rights should be super important, especially the hours that animators work. It's not uncommon for animators to be doing extended, up to 16-hour days if they're pushing it. That's the same as the live action actors and filmmakers as well. Yeah, we'll talk about actors, but the crews. Oh yeah. So many of them working extended hours, and they're generally up and working on things before even the actors get on set. So yeah, definitely a lot going on. Okay, so when is the Anime Expo, Dave?
Actually, you know what? Where it was, I don't know. I can't give you information on that because I didn't put it in my notes. But terrible of me. But there was a couple of highlights. Panty and Stockings with Gutter Belt. So season 2 of Panty and Stockings is coming out. Suicide Squad Zika. The anime. Yeah, the anime. Suicide Squad.
Oh, right.
Solo Leveling, which is based on basically a manga comic, and we're seeing new seasons or new iterations of Bleach, Trigun, Pokemon, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So all of which has been announced and trailers being shown for all of those as well. So there's a lot of anime coming out. So just a question. Is Isekai Suicide Squad the same group that did the Catwoman anime a couple of years ago? I'm really not sure. I'm going to have to check up and get back to you on that one. I'll do it in a bit and see how we go.
Yes, because it's definitely. I watched. Let's say I endured the Catwoman.
Oh, okay, yeah.
but it's not too bad. But yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
the two surprise drops that are
the big talking points in animation this week.
Yeah.
So How Do You Live is out there in the world. We still don't know anything about it. Sorry?
It's
Miyazaki's last film, I believe.
Latest film.
Yeah, latest last film, maybe, yeah.
His final film.
Yeah.
So many high school... Oh, there we go. We got a comment here. So many high school entrants because parents were actively encouraging their kids to get some screen time. Because they couldn't get out and do stuff, probably.
Perfect.
Probably. Very, very, very probably.
Yep. Okay, but How Do You Live, despite no advertising for it, despite a surprise drop, it's apparently doing really well in the box office. So it's making its money back, so that's great to hear.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting marketing ploy by Miyazaki. This is about his 6th final film, so we'll see.
I think his anxieties about Japanese culture haven't let him sleep for a while.
It's. I'm curious to see how it goes. I'm excited to see it, but and we know it's going to be brilliant. But it's dead air. There's nothing. Other than,
it's there. It'll come to us eventually. Just we'll let you know when it's coming closer, hopefully.
Okay, let's you and I geek out. Lindsay, you may have to watch this.
Yes, I was just noticing those two characters in Star Trek uniforms and Star Trek screens look strangely familiar. It's almost like they're riffing off some kind of cartoon.
So Boimler and Mariner from the animated Star Trek Lower Decks appeared in the live-action Strange New Worlds episode.
There you go.
Those old scientists.
Which is a riff on a joke from Lower Decks as a reference to the TOS era, what is generally referred to as the original series era. So, it's great. The episode was dropped early after Comic-Con. I knew it was being released early at Comic-Con.
Screened early at Comic-Con, but early drop from us. So that's fantastic that we got it.
It was good. It was well received. Like generally really positive reviews across the board. Those people who are really against the idea of cartoons, and there's a few of them, obviously had things to say, but they managed to find a nice balance between the two series, and the characters don't feel like out of place.
And they feel like they're characters as well. It's a good. They walk that perfect line, or Section 31 Power walk that perfect line in Boimler's case. But they do embody their cartoon characters exceptionally well.
Trek jokes. I don't know these people.
Oh, okay.
They literally call it out in the show. Lens, they say, of
course they do. Yeah.
They say, the crew of the Enterprise say their references are strangely specific.
Oh dear. Sounds
Look,
like they're having
and
fun.
the other thing about this is it makes Lower Deck canon in Prime Trek continuity, which it already was, but it confirms it for a few of the doubters out there. Yeah. And if Lower Decks is canon, that also makes the animated series canon as well. Because
back in the early 70s?
Yeah.
Lower Decks has heavy references to the animated series throughout it. So
actually, so does Strange New Worlds. Surprisingly, there's a couple of characters that have been pulled from the animated series into Strange New Worlds prior to Lower Decks. So,
I recall watching that as a kid in the afternoons until after Saturday or afternoon television. I don't remember much about it, but I remember it had this sort of tone that you didn't get with the usual cartoon stuff.
Yeah.
But that's about all I remember. That was really informative, wasn't it, viewers? But anyway.
Yes.
Wow. So nothing is left unturned in the Star Trek universe.
No, nothing is left unturned in the Star Trek universe. It's really, really. Oh, I'm echoing. Echo. I'm getting myself in feedbacking.
Sounding all right here.
Transmat failure.
Yeah. Probably. Okay, so let's get on to the upcoming releases, of which some, like Atom Eve for Invincible, has already come out.
Same with Dragon Prince Season 5. Invincible Atom Eve is on Prime. Dragon Prince Season 5 dropped earlier this week, I believe, on Netflix. There's nothing coming out in the cinemas. Well, nothing is announced that's coming out in the cinemas, so it's a bit of a dearth for that. But streaming's got you covered in a lot of areas. So we've got Bucky Hanman Season 2 coming out on July 26th on Netflix. We've got Miraculous, Ladybug and Cat Noir, the movie, on July 28th, Netflix. Captain Fell on July 28th on Netflix. So that's by the creator of Norseman, the Vikings comedy. So curious to see what that's like. Bastard Season 2, July 31st on Netflix. I'm not a fan of it, I have to admit. Grizzly and Lemmings Season 3, July 31st on Netflix. Gabby's Dollhouse, Season 8 on August 7th on Netflix. Strange Planets on
Looking
August
forward
8th.
to that one.
Oh, is that the one, the little internet aliens?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, the real articulate ones. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They made a cartoon out of it.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how it works, because it's a different
I've already
format.
got the book. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it does translate to. I'm going to assume it's going to be a 20-minute show, or a 25, 30-minute show, roughly. So, drawn out. That could be interesting. Met Cadets on August 10th on Netflix, which seems to be a standard kind of hero's journey with robots involved. Solar Opposites, August 14th. I've got it for Hulu. It's premiering on Hulu. No announcement if it's going to get a specific Australian release through one of the other servers at the moment, but keep an eye out because these things often happen.
We get it through Star, so on Disney. Yeah. So
hopefully,
yeah. It's great if you haven't seen it. Like the B plot is definitely the more interesting of the two storylines, which I won't spoil because it's worth watching. But the Solar Opposites, of course, lost voice actor Justin Roiland, and they've done a unique. The trailer's out for the new season, and they show what they do with Justin Roiland's voice, and it's actually quite clever, and irreverent like the TV series itself. So
yeah, it's pretty amusing. I have to admit. We've got My Dad the Bounty Hunter Season 2 coming out August the 17th on Netflix. The Monkey King, which is a movie, on August 18th on Netflix. So that could be really curious because most Australians of our vintage grew up watching something on television called Monkey, and
a lot of the kids these days are watching Lego Monkey Kid too. Which
cool.
That's true.
Which is and there was a reboot, like an Australian New Zealand reboot.
Yeah, Monkey the Legend Continues or something along those lines.
Yeah, so that didn't look anything like the original.
Was
was it
Australian New Zealand co-production?
I think it was. It was Australia, New Zealand. Yeah.
It's
that's going back a while now. So.
Yeah. But of course, like kids these days have access to Sun Wukong. But those of us of a certain vintage remember Classic Monkey from the 70s, and
with a lot of terminology we probably shouldn't. But hey.
Oh yeah. Yes.
It was a Sino-Britco.
Yeah, it was. So well, no, not Chinese. It was Japanese.
But, that's what I mean. It was Japanese, a very big Japanese TV host star made it.
Yeah.
I think the Chinese got because they cut hair instead of blonde hair. But yeah.
It wasn't that early voice work for Miriam Margolyes?
Was it really?
I've heard rumors of
it. We thought about a guest, and she's in town. We should have got Miriam Margolyes.
Yeah, tell us all the inside goss about the
monkey. That would be amazing. But then we'd probably have to put further expletive warnings on the show. So
yes. Well, yes. If she talks about her early career, yeah. Okay, also the last one is Archer, season 14. This is appeared to be the final season of Archer. And that's premiering August 30th on FX. It doesn't look like Binge has picked up the last couple of seasons of Archer, so I don't know if it's going to fall on Netflix at some time in the future or another form of streaming, but
we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it'll probably be available on video on demand, Google, as it drops, I hope. So see how it does.
Yeah. Okay, so
all right,
jumping into the great debate, which is not really a debate. We'll keep calling it that. It's fine. It's not really a debate. Ralph Bakshi. The Ralph Bakshi. Okay.
The dude himself.
So, for those of you who don't know, Ralph Bakshi is an American director of animated and live action productions. He was born on October 29, October 29, 1938. It just sounds like an encyclopedia, doesn't it?
Yeah. Look, he was born in British Palestine at the time, which later became Israel. But his family had to migrate to America early on in his life because of the war. And he spent a lot of his early life in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So as an animator, he got into studio work through Terry Toons, and was working on Heckle and Jekyll and Mighty Mouse when he was 18 or so. If you remember any of those cartoons, so Mighty Mouse is
vaguely,
yeah, but Heckle and Jekyll definitely riffed on some of the early potentially racist cartoons as well.
Yeah, similar to like the Disney Crows and Dumbo.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry Toons was like that really old style of there was like the Warner Brothers cartoons, that sort of stuff. But there was like the B team, essentially. It was like all the minor characters. Like you'd have others like, say, Woody Woodpecker, and some other characters. But
they were doing what Fleischer and Disney were doing in the 30s, in the 50s. That's what.
Yeah, pretty much. So it always felt a bit. Whereas the Warner Brothers stuff back in the 70s felt like, they're 20 years old or 30 years old or 5,000 years old if you're 10. But they felt like they were pretty snappy and pretty with it, even though they were a bit old and dated. Whereas a lot of the other stuff was always a bit, this feels really old timey-wimey. And but I always felt there was that strong streak of that sort of thing running through all of Bakshi's work. Like he'd grown up on the laps of these guys that had been doing their main work in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And it's got that
kind of the same energy way I am now.
Yeah, you can see it in we'll probably be discussing his influences as we go through his movies, and you can see it in things like definitely in Cool World, because he deliberately thought it that way. And there's a few others that you can see it in as well.
But he started really young, though. I mean, like he was barely.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Let's.
He's the classic example of working through the ranks.
Yeah, we should address one of the elephants in the room, I guess. Bakshi's a hard one to get a cohesive story about because he's a storyteller, and there's a lot out there that he said, and a lot of it isn't true. Let's just be honest. A lot of it's not true. A lot of it contradicts itself, and it's all over the place. So it's kind of hard to tell what's true.
I don't think I've ever told the same story to my students about Ralph Bakshi, because I'm pretty sure I have to change it up based on new information that I glean every semester. So.
Yeah.
You
really
straight from the horse's mouth to you, version 6.
But you do see it in his work to some degree. There's a semi-autobiographical tinge to, say, Heavy Traffic. You see that. There's a similar tinge to what's the 80s movie? Excuse us a sec. Looking at You Gorgeous or something like that. Yeah, sorry.
Good Looking, I think it was.
Hey, Good Looking.
Where's our list?
Hey, Good Looking, yes. Which is
Hey, Good Looking. That's the one.
Which was based on two of his friends, and one of those that's not really well regarded, but it took 10 odd years to do because it was a personal project for him. He started after it was supposed to be screening after he did Coonskin, but the reaction, the backlash against Coonskin made the distributors very concerned, and it was supposed to be a meld of live action and animated, and that also made the distributors very concerned that it would be profitable. It was just a bit too out there for 1976, 78, something along those lines. So they had to wait till 82 till he finished off, and he finished off with his own money. So,
okay, jeez, serious.
Yeah. But, so after Terry Toons, he moved on to Paramount, where he was working for Marvel, doing Spider-Man animated
the famous
series,
Spider-Man,
which we spoke about because he was directing episodes during the 2nd through 4th season or whatever it is in that time.
And his gift of thrift really shines in those couple of seasons.
I'll say I remember watching them as a little kid thinking, wow, this is so cheap. But it was kind of weird. I remember lots of ghosts and ghoulies and strange things like that. So
actually, you sort of see it definitely appear during Wizards, but he does have a reputation for being a animator on the cheap. He is I use the word a guerrilla, like a guerrilla filmmaker. He's a guerrilla animator in that sense. He can get in there and pull stuff off at the lowest budget possible. And it's impressive to see what he can get away with. Like posterizing.
Yeah, he'll work on a budget, but he'll bring it in. So,
Yeah.
That's true.
You tell him how much money you're going to give him, and he'll still give you a film, but it will be worth that amount of money.
It's certainly interesting. That's for sure.
We're certainly going to talk about that when we talk about Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Okay. So we jump from Spider-Man to his first feature film, Fritz the Cat.
Yeah. We should probably give a little bit of background to that jump as well. He was apparently pushing for more adult content of animation, and wasn't getting it from the television studios. They didn't want to risk it in that regard. So he managed to get it through going to a producer and talking him into it. He wanted to push Heavy Traffic first, I believe, because that's, as I was saying, more of his script and autobiographical script. But he needed to do a proof of concept first. And the proof of concept was getting the rights for something that's out there in the underground comic scene already and could be could be adapted and brought to the screen. So it's a built-in audience. Hopefully that will translate to bums on seats.
Well, it did.
Yes.
Yeah, he was riffing off. I guess you could say he was riffing off the back of Robert Crumb. It was very big in the underground.
Well, it was Robert Crumb.
Yes.
That's his comic that he did. So
again, depends on whose story you believe.
Yeah,
it might just be Robert Crumb's wife signing over the rights. But
I've been reading about that since I was a little kid, getting into comic book history and stuff like that. You know, he'd get mentioned alongside Winsor McKay and all those other great old dudes, and Fritz the Cat was this sort of hippie thing that turned up and surprised everybody.
And we can say Crumb was not a fan of the film.
Oh, he absolutely hated it to the point where he killed off Fritz in the comics after the film was released because he hated the film so much. Yeah. I mean, his comic was,
I mean, look, it's like a lot of those underground comics are pretty out there, like sexist, racist, you name it. And they're
definitely falls in those zones. Sexist, racist, homophobic.
They're definitely rebounding from decades of repression, basically, and they've gone to the other extreme.
Before you jump out and go see check out the trailer to Fritz the Cat, does include use of the N-word that is not beeped. It is
it's
definitely
pretty full on.
And the characters are very stereotypical. Bakshi has always said that. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, go with that. I was going to say, can we take a moment to put that in context as well? Because
So that's where I was going to go. So Bakshi has always said that that's the environment he grew up in, and he was always said that he was being respectful of the stereotypes that it was putting out there in the world. Whether he's successful or not, obviously there's a bit of a cult following to his films. He definitely deserves to be respected for an interesting career, despite the fact that he crossed so many potential lines. And it's kind of one of those things where it was a sign of the times, like, do you crucify someone for their past work when no one else was
doing anything?
But the thing is, would he do the same film today?
Well, that's right.
And the answer is probably yes.
No, probably.
But
it's like a lot of the underground comics on that boat as well. There were a lot of the old underground comics, like Robert Crumb and all that stuff, were in that same boat. They were hailed as great expressions of freedom and rebelliousness, but they have not aged well. And like 10, 20, or even 10, 15, 20 years ago, people were looking at them again and going, oh, God, I can hardly sit through one of these things.
But they are like, it's kind of hard to imagine yourself in that time period, sort of that lockdown of the 50s in America, and then going into the 60s, and the cinemas changed. The cinema's changing because of influences from Japan and France and Italy, and more a realistic approach to things. You're getting a widening perspective. You've got changing political movements and changing belief systems. You've got people not trusting authority to any degree.
And you've got a backlash to that. So the hippies of the 60s and the backlash to that during the 70s.
One Titanic, you got all the political scandals at the time. You got the Vietnam War. You got the world's biggest generation gap, I think, at the time. And
like what we're seeing today.
Well, yes, a little more muddled today. There's no single focusing event like, say, the Vietnam War or Watergate scandal for people to latch onto. It seems to be this perpetual conveyor belt of nonsense that we're kind of finding ourselves adrift in, or trapped in a stormy sea.
And from cinema point of view, the late 60s, early 70s, the studio system, what was remaining of it, was kind of a bit adrift.
Wasn't just adrift; it fell apart.
Exactly. You had this vacuum that allowed the new, those that we recognise as the master auteurs of the cinema now. Coppola, Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese coming along and taking up the mantle and being allowed to, because the executives didn't know what the hell was going on.
Well, what was happening also was that the old family businesses were falling to bits. The Warner Brothers were no longer Brothers or Warners anymore. They were now being bought by companies who were then being bought up by other companies. And so it's very interesting if you go trawling through some of the old interview shows, listening to the old hands, get suddenly nostalgic about these film moguls who were the most revolting people you would have ever have worked for. And suddenly, oh no, it's not the good old days. He might have been a bastard, but he loved movies, And it's like they were lamenting this dreadful new world that we now have nostalgia for. So it's kind of weird.
Remembering that this is falling very much in the dark Disney period, and Ralph has often been cited as being anti-Disney. And
I don't think he was anti-Disney, but
he was.
Well, I mean, he was always talking about Disney sets up shop and says, "Oh, you can only make decent animation if you got $1 million or whatever." But I think he was just as much frustrated by the fact that we had all this technology that we could now use to make our own films with. Not many people were sort of making films, which I always thought was a bit strange, because there seems to be no shortage of movies or films out there now for adults or teens or whoever.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Disney had fallen into the mold of animation for kids.
Yeah,
that's what it was for. That's the target it was aimed for. That's what
and that was for. Kids in the old small table at the back of the adult party getting, the fairy bread and the lemonade and a pat on the head, basically.
And Fritz the Cat blew the doors off of that. Like it really did at the time. It was its first X-rated cartoon. They originally freaked out about that, and then they, as you can see on the poster there, decided to lean into that heavily and actually just put it as the advertising.
Oh, yeah. So, and if you want an idea, just the trailer alone is more than enough to give you an idea of what's going on. They didn't even bleep out the explicit detail or content from that trailer.
Even back in the late 70s, early 80s, it felt sordid.
And it is, but it's also, it's not just sordid for sordid's sake necessarily. It's also there for social commentary. It's there as part of the social commentary. It's there as part of the civil rights movement and addressing all those changes that are going on in society as well. It is. It's interesting what it achieves.
As
it aged well. Yeah, it really was.
So it made 90 million worldwide off a budget of 815,000. Which,
that's
making it still one of the most successful animated features of all time.
It proved the concept, and it proved the concept would bank. It actually had a sequel, Many Lives of Fritz the Cat, not directed by Bakshi, because he decided
it's crap. It's terrible.
It is absolutely terrible.
I remember very little about it, other than it was terrible.
So Fritz the Cat and the success of Fritz the Cat and the audience of adult animation during the 70s was enough to give Bakshi the leaping point to do Heavy Traffic. So it's autobiographical, as you said, growing up in Brooklyn, and it blends live action and animation.
In parts, not as much as he wanted, but in parts, yes.
No.
I thought it was the better film after Fritz the Cat. It felt more, what's the word I'm looking for? Authentic? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
There's some really magical moments in it that I think I still remember quite distinctly now, like a death and billiard cues and stuff like that. And,
there's more heart.
Really good.
It's Bakshi's personal story. And,
And for me, all that problematic stuff works in that one, because it really does feel like, oh, this is a story set in this time, in this place, and this is how things were back then. And it feels like it's more in context, whereas a lot of the other stuff feels like, is he trying to make a point or be contemporary here or what? Whereas Heavy Traffic felt like you've just opened an old diary or something from somewhere way back when, where times were quite different. And it's written in the words of the time at the time. That makes sense.
It locked Bakshi into being a recognized director for his work. Like those two films together were enough to say, hey, Bakshi is a potential animation powerhouse, and he's by himself, although it wasn't by himself, taking on the big studios, big animation studios, and doing it his own way. Which would be great if he didn't do Coonskinners since the next film in 1975.
1975, he does a blaxploitation version of The Song of the South.
Bad
basically.
timing.
Look, this one's a problematic film. But it is a film. Oh God, it's a problematic film. It's a film with good intentions that are perhaps badly expressed and not necessarily his story to tell. Well, definitely not his story to tell. It uses a lot, and we're talking about a lot of stereotypes here, both African for Black people, for Italians, for Irish, for gay and transsexual folk. It is an ugly piece, but that's partly the point. It's meant to draw your attention to a whole variety of social issues. Perhaps one of the prettiest and most recognizable icons is this blonde goddess that they've got in it called America, which is available on most of the cover artwork. And she is just someone that is seen as enticing in Black man, and often ending up with them dead through threats of violence or threats of violence, just beating on them or causing other people to lynch them. It's a heck of a piece, but oh my God, is it? It's not a comfortable piece, and it's one of those. It caused a lot of trouble at the time. The Congress of Racial Equality protested its initial screening, surrounded and protested, actually disrupted the event. They, I believe, smoke bombed a couple of cinemas that were actually showing it at the time. Wow. Again, this is one of those stories that's come about. We don't know if it's Bakshi elaborating or whatever. Paramount was the distributor initially, and they decided to allow Bakshi to distribute it through other means because they just didn't want to touch that third rail. He actually got a small distribution company, which ironically was reputedly run by the mafia, to distribute it, and they were bust 2 weeks later. So it's a really sort of it's a really weird sort of story there, and it's one of those that's had an effect on Bakshi's career. Look, Congress of Racial Equality protested it. The NAACP, National Association of African American Cultural Progression,
Colored people, I thought,
actually supported it, but referred to it as a very difficult satire. So it is a weird piece, and it's one that's been reevaluated as time goes on, and it's found as a very difficult piece of satire is a very good way of describing it, but it has appeared in a lot of best animation lists over the decades recently. I saw it on VHS a long time ago, and it really did feel like it tripped over its own feet. But it definitely felt like of its time, and it didn't kind of click at all for me.
I don't think we were the audience.
No.
it just went clean over my head. I just couldn't get it. It's like, what the hell is he trying to do? So I'd been brought up on Wizards and Fritz the Cat and Heavy Traffic, and I thought, Heavy Traffic looks pretty good. And then this was not the next good film to watch.
And it's got an interesting cast to it too, because you got Barry White, you've got Philip Michael Thomas from Miami Vice fame as Rabbit in that, and Scatman Carruthers singing the theme song, which I cannot even tell you the name of because of the use of language in it. So
let me access the Google. Oh, sorry. Okay, we can't play it because you don't know it. Because
this is not The Wire. We're not in the era of Quentin Tarantino and thinks he can get away with saying that word.
Okay.
No, we're not playing that. But yeah,
Jeez.
Jazz from Transformers.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's one that really kind of changed Bakshi's career directory. And it brings us to Wizards, basically, because he had to do a fantasy for something else.
Well, I've always heard the story that he had to do Wizards as a proof of concept to get Lord of the Rings. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, because I could never. When I was researching the notes for this, I could not find any reference to it. So
I doubt that, because Lord of the Rings was one of those projects that was in development for quite a while beforehand, and there was when's Wizards is what
77, I think 78. It's around Star Wars.
No, yes, right. It is 77. You're right, because it was referred to as War Wizards. Yes,
that's right. And I think Allegra and Antropo came out shortly after.
Yeah, so subversive
a whole
animation
flood
was
of
definitely
flood. Yeah, there seemed to be a real sort of underground animation thing going on in the late 70s.
Yeah,
and I think at around that time you had little indie films like Hardware Wars, which was sort of this weird pixelated mixture of stuff, which was like a parody on Star Wars. And then there was also, was it The Wizard of Sound and Image or something? Is that really weird pixelated? Heavens, I've forgotten the name. Sorry, everyone.
Wizard of Speed and Time?
Time and Space or something. Yeah, Speed and Time or something. It's really, and there was a whole swag of these things that all turned up around the same time. Yeah.
But so Wizards manages to take the basic plot of good wizard versus an evil wizard, which you see a couple of times in Ralph's work, but it adds a veneer of World War II, with the evil wizard discovering film reels of Nazis, because it's set in
propaganda.
Set in a post-apocalyptic future Earth where after the bomb, magic and elves and fairies have come back because that's what happens.
Why not? Well, it's like the Mushroom Wars in Adventure Time, isn't it?
Well, and Nausicaa is that. And
Nausicaa, that's true.
So, so it's not like it was an uncommon thing to be done.
It's a post-apocalypse.
There's some really cool things going on in Wizards. It's G-rated, or is it PG-rated?
It has to be PG-rated, surely.
It's got to be considering
the main fairy character is like,
and
wearing a slingshot.
It was marketed as a kids' film, and I saw it when I must have seen it when I was 8 years old, as a lot of us did.
10, maybe 11.
But that being said, I also saw Watership Down around the same time as well.
Oh, that's true.
It's probably as child-friendly as Bakshi gets, but there's some characters with, how do you translate it in Monty Python terms, large tracts of land.
That's right. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Had a profound effect on this poor kid, that's for sure. Crikey.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
However,
okay.
the design aesthetic for the film is amazing.
Well, it's Vaughn Bode, says his name.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Vaughn Bode is the guy that I swear every graffiti artist based their style on.
It's two different artists. It's Miller for the
Who's the comic book artist?
Dark Wolf and the sort of Nazi-esque sort of stuff. So that sort of very distinct fine ink line style that you got in a lot of the early Games Workshop products. He's responsible for.
If you ever want to know what Ralph Bakshi looks like, the
Mike
wizard,
Klug, that's the other guy.
Thank you.
The good wizard in Wizards is pretty much Ralph Bakshi. So
I just love how he got rid of the bad wizard. I thought that was always kind of hilarious. I brought the house down when we watched it.
It's great.
The whole audience reaction was.
And the character that's often used for the poster, Necron 99 or the robot Peace, and his mount is strikingly awesome design. I just love that character. That poster belongs on every fantasy enthusiast wall. It's a fun film.
It's weird.
We should also mention the other important piece of animation trivia for this.
Yeah.
First animation voice work from Mark Hamill.
Yes.
Oh, really?
I had that sitting in the back of my brain. Mark Hamill, and this would have been recorded pre-Star Wars.
Post Star Wars, because it was into Bakshi. It's part of the deal with the War Wizards change of title.
Nice. Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
So Mark Hamill playing an elf in Wizards. So
post Star Wars filming, pre Star Wars release. Yes.
Yes.
Should clarify.
A strange period of movie making. Late 70s, early 80s.
When you're sharing things. True. Okay. So, Wizards, whether it's true or not, Wizards led on to Lord of the Rings. And Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson borrows a lot from Bakshi's version.
Yeah.
Like, to complete camera angles and shots are taken wholesale from Bakshi's version. The narrative bit at the beginning is similar, obviously lower budget and posterized actors and things like that. It's very, very cool. But we should talk about the technical side of that.
Yeah, well, this was considered a film that was impossible to film, a work that was impossible to film before Bakshi did what he did. You could argue if he filmed it or not, or made it or not. There's half a film there, but that's not necessarily his fault.
So my notes say...
the only one I haven't seen yet. Yeah.
My notes say Bakshi pitched his idea to United Artists for the film, and they gave him $8 million to make it.
Cool.
The project eventually cost $4 million.
Again, that's one of those that there's differences on, because it was a change in studio heads between pitching it, getting the green light, and actually starting filming. There was a rewrite of script because there was apparently a Jim Borman script around. The director of Excalibur, which was apparently just crazy, like 700 pages in one movie. And if you know roughly thumb for script writing,
a series, for God's sake.
I'm prepared to sell my left leg for a Jim Borman Lord of the Rings 10-hour epic movie made in the 70s.
I don't know what Borman would get.
I don't know. I think we've been spared.
Borman,
I remember Excalibur being quite over the top.
Yeah. Excalibur is great. I saw it a few weeks ago because...
Excalibur's fantastic. I love it. Zardos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Holy.
I can see what they're going for, but it doesn't quite get across the movie. That would have worked better as a kind of weird 70s British sci-fi book, I think. The minute you see it literally on screen, it's like, no, Zardos doesn't quite seem to get there. Yeah. So you've got
Lord of the Rings being produced actually relatively cheaply. There's a lot of posterized footage in the same way that was used in Wizards. You're getting a lot more rotoscoping than you have in previous Bakshi productions.
Yeah,
and then some. Yep.
Yeah, and then some. Like, yeah. Most of the film is rotoscoped, and
I've only seen that even was Treebeard, I believe. That's the only thing that's not rotoscoped.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Okay. I've only seen clips of Lord of the Rings. I've never seen the whole thing from end to end.
See, it's
film I haven't seen yet.
I think it'll age badly.
I'm sure it will, but that just makes it a distinctive Bakshi film, doesn't it?
It is actually, but it's a gorgeous Bakshi film. Like, don't throw it out.
No.
No.
Interesting.
No, it's a mix. Look, there are sequences that are absolutely gorgeous in it. There is no doubt about it. There's sequences that are absolutely gorgeous in it, and then there's other things that are not. The attack on Helm's Deep, where he's using a lot of, was it not just rotoscoping, but solarization?
Posterization, or whatever they call it.
Yeah, and oh boy, that's harsh to watch. Yeah. It's a movie that includes characters running across the screen and falling over, and someone's animated that and kept it going and kept it in the film.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's extraordinary.
Those are the clips I remember. I think they showed mostly the weird and strange, bodgy ones. But I haven't seen the Treebeard stuff yet. That's one of the bucket list things to do. Yeah.
So the film was a moderate success with 30 million take. However, it was only released. It only took the first two books as part of the 90-minute runtime.
Yeah.
So
90. God.
Yes. It's about 90. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
I think it's a bit over now. I think it's almost 2 hours.
Check that for me, because.
Jeez.
It's so it's first two books, so it doesn't do the Return of the King.
It's all right. Someone
Hooray! Yep.
And of course, because of disagreements in film politics, it never got made, never got continued. But it's often recognized as like being that foundation that led to 20 years later, Peter Jackson's version being made. And I just realized, right, it is more time has passed between the release of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings than Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings and Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
There you go.
It's 2 hours.
You feel old.
This sounds a bit like Woohoo fans.
2 hours 12. Okay, it doesn't feel like 2 hours 12.
Yeah, it's weird though. I can barely remember the Rainem sequence, Helm's Deep sequence. I can clearly remember up to the Mines of Moria, and it has been kind of just fades out for me in memory. Yeah, it has been a while for me as well.
I was okay watching extended features that would no way run as long as they did back then, like Clash of the Titans
actually, sorry, I do tell a lie. The death of Boromir, I do recall that as well, because that's actually a beautiful sequence. It shows what can be done with Bakshi with rotoscoping. You can actually capture facial expressions and the emotions of the actors there.
Yes,
very well.
True. So speaking of that, so we jump from Lord of the Rings, unless anyone had another point to make about.
Can we just say credit where credit is due here as well? A, he proved that Lord of the Rings could be done.
Yes.
B, it kind of was. I don't know if it was the right thing at the right time, or and just kind of hit that sweet spot, or promoted that sort of fantasy rising, because you got that, and you get Conan and He-Man and all that sort of cheesy 80s fantasy coming, or 70s and 80s fantasy coming from there as well.
Coming from
D&D would have come from that environment.
Yeah, you've got it's. I guess it was all sort of the zeitgeist at the time, because
it did. Well, Lord of the Rings, the novel, did that, obviously, but there was no feature film that got to that level, and within a couple of years of it, and Star Wars, you pretty much got a glut of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it was like the floodgates were released, and suddenly everyone was mining the old 50s classic sci-fi stuff.
But someone had to make it as a film first, and it was Round.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Okay, American Pop.
Very influential.
Okay.
Oh, we're jumping forward. In time. Okay,
wow.
So American Pop, released in 81. So 4 generations of Russian Jewish.
Yeah, it's basically it's again somewhat semi-autobiographical, but less so. It's telling, looking at stories that she's heard and telling 4 generations of immigrants, and it's looking at the musical influences there. It's got an absolutely banger soundtrack from the 70s. Parts of it, it's got.
I have to admit, I haven't seen it. So
no, same
I haven't
here.
seen it either.
Same here, and it's one of those that was hard to find on home video because it had such a good soundtrack. Therefore, the rights weren't easily accessible. Because it had it had Janis Joplin. It had a lot of old sort of soul and 1950s standbys as well. It had some 80s stuff there, and there's this whole bunch of different conglomerate rights that somehow Bakshi had chutzpah'd his way into during the 80s, and good luck in being a company trying to release it on physical media come the 90s or the 2000s.
So I haven't seen his other one either, like Hey Good Looking or American Pop. In fact, I didn't even know they existed until about 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. He just seemed to disappear off the radar for me. And then he suddenly reappeared with Cool World.
Notable for American Pop is that he managed to pull a whole swathe of animators from the old days of Fleischer's Studios and some of the older experienced animators that he worked with together to work on American Pop. From what I have seen of it, it does look a little bit more polished than some of his other stuff. So
there is heavy reliance on rotoscope there as well. Heavy reliance on rotoscope, you can see.
Yeah, well, that's true of anything after the Lord of the Rings. So it's true. Okay, and Hey Good Looking.
American Pop's also one of those that's well regarded and has kind of had a bit of a renaissance. It again makes its way in to best animation lists quite often. And there's a fair few around that have it in the 80s or 90s.
I also haven't seen Hey Good Looking. So
I think that's actually available on YouTube, so I might have to check it out later. Again, that's a very autobiographical. Okay, Hey Good Looking there's a story behind it, so much I can at least share the story, even if I haven't actually seen it all. It's looking at the 1950s. It's based a lot. It's a semi-autobiographical work based a lot on a couple of friends that Bakshi had during his school days, low school days, high school days. He initially wanted to do it around about the same time as Coonskin. It was slated to be the next film he'd release after Coonskin. It was a animation and live action hybrid. So the techniques that he was doing in heavy traffic, Coonskin, and sort of rotoscoped over later on, he was going to be doing without rotoscoping. So just have that, so live actions there, but actually have cartoons all throughout the film interacting with live action. So very much as he did later on with Cool World, and get claimed that he was ripping off Roger Rabbit. And it was
But
definitely
how? Like it was made. Oh, Cool World. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. But it was very much a personal thing for him. Very much a personal project. He when the money fell out and he still had some of the animation done, but still had to get, I think it was about 50,000 for do the live action sequences, or those that are already filmed, and get some animation linked with those. He ended up doing it of his own pocket, and as after work was winding down for a few of his other projects, he'd do it himself and get a few other animators on board to do it out of a bit of a labour of love, basically, for him. So it took him almost 10 years to get a release, and it did get a release and disappeared. It didn't make any sort of critical acclaim at the time, and it was just, got a release, disappeared in box office, disappeared critically. So it's a bit of a sad story for him, but yeah.
Next on the list is obviously the big film of the big animated Bakshi film. So the first Bakshi film that I saw. I was, young and just getting into things like Conan, and those films were just coming out. So seeing Fire and Ice for the first time is like amazing, and I couldn't work out why the animation was so nice and so smooth. Yes. Well, character design was different from Ralph Bakshi's stuff because yes, it was relying on Frank Frazetta, and the blending of the two styles actually worked really well for the film. Like Ralph's animation works for Frazetta's art style, and the art style carries the film. It definitely feels like an art piece compared to some of the other animations that Ralph had done previously. Obviously, there's a lot more detail. There's definitely a lot more rotoscoping. It's a lot more visceral. It's definitely dark fantasy, sword and sandal stuff. Frazetta was known primarily for his Conan covers, book covers and comic book
and
covers.
Just fantasy art and novel covers in general for 6,000 years, I think, before that.
And is still one of those respected and cited artists back from the
He
time
did
period.
a whole run on King's strips like Little Abner for several years as well. So there's a whole Frazetta era of Little Abner. That's just amazing. It's a real surprise when you first discover it. It was not something you'd expect, but yeah, he was in a lot of different things. And,
something we should probably mention here. This is the first time this will come up, but it's going to come up again very soon. One of the creators of the creator of Eon Flux, Paul Chung, actually worked on this as a layout supervisor. It actually giving a leg up to first employment opportunities for those that will later on go on to produce and become.
He's quite vocal about groups of inexperienced animators getting together and just creating stuff. Very much a man of my own heart in that regard. Like
that's
that
Mighty
whole
Mouse
idea
right there.
Just diving in. We'll talk a little bit about Mighty Mouse, but just wrapping up that Fire and Ice side of things. I mean, it's my favorite of Bakshi's films, and that's not because it's the best one, but it's definitely has the nostalgic value for me. I really like the style and the film for the feel of it. And not just because there's nakedness running around and swords chopping up people and Yeah.
That helps.
That helps. But it's an awesome snapshot of that period of literature and film. Like, it's and the character design is great. So good. Thanks, Frank.
He had some big names working for him. Mike Plug, Frank Frazetta.
Yeah, well, Mike Plug's still around doing lots of stuff, and occasionally, we talk about their legacy and stuff like that after. But we don't want to talk too long because we'll drag it on forever.
No,
but,
that's true. We're running over.
Quite often, when you see Ralph and Mike online, which they still are, they're trying to pawn off cells or sketches from Fire and Ice, and yes, they're exactly the cells that you're talking about. You're thinking about all those for hundreds of dollars to make some money, which is
I can imagine.
If you got them sitting in a box in your garage somewhere, why not make some fan happy?
Actually, claimed he made more money as an artist than he did as an animator. So
yeah.
It's probably getting what they're actually worth. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool world.
So there is a time period here where, you've got a 10-year hiatus, which is surprising considering the Fire and Ice nostalgically awesome wasn't particularly well received out there.
It was still nerdy.
And Ralph was out of the industry for a little while doing other things. He didn't make another film until 1992. But
he did. Sorry, I was going to say this is probably the period that he did the Harlem Shuffle.
Shuffle, Mighty Mouse, all of that.
Yeah, Mighty Mouse is what I'm thinking of.
Mighty Mouse is interesting.
So,
one of those... Go for it.
Possibly recognized as his worst film of all time. Cool World.
Yeah.
It copped a lot because everyone saw it and expected Roger Rabbit. It was a little bit of a... think of it this way. Imagine taking the kids to Roger Rabbit and getting a kind of cut down Fritz the Cat instead.
Yeah.
That was my impression of it.
Apparently,
it didn't work for me at all.
This is a film that Bakshi punched a producer in the face over.
Oh, really? Oh, that's all right.
His story is that it was a different script initially, and it went into production as a different script. The producer it went in production as a horror script, so you'd actually have Hollywood sleeping with her creator early on, and the story actually being about a half animated, half human hybrid child had off the affair going around afterwards in a horror movie sort of franchise.
Crikey. Okay,
so that would have been interesting. Yeah. And apparently the producer hired another script writer to do another script, and had locked Bakshi into the contract and went, "Nah, this is the script you're directing. Good luck with that." And that's what we got. You get Brad Pitt and Kim Basinger.
Yeah,
you do. Gabriel Byrne as well, was it?
Gabriel Byrne.
Yeah, he was in it. I think he's the cartoonist, and then there's a Brad Pitt who's the detective.
You've got a lot of young animation team just been told, "Hey, you know what? We're doing things Terry Toon style. Think Terry Toons, think Flashing era, and go that sort of direction with your animation. Just go wacky, give us wild stuff, do whatever you need to do." So it is, it's a bit of a mess. It's directionless but frenetic.
Certainly is.
So let's talk about his because there is The Last Days of Coney Island, which was 2015, which is his last piece.
Kickstarter project, 20 minutes.
Yeah, he kickstarted 20 minutes. It's out there on Hulu somewhere, not Hulu, Vimeo, so you can find it. It's very much along the lines of the 70s Bakshi stuff. It's a piece to watch, and there's a lot of repeating animation. It is done on the cheap. It kind of is a bit of a chore to watch for me. Whether you enjoy it or not, that's fine. But it's out there. Go and see it. Check it out. 2015. So, but big gap in there before that film was made. So his semi-retirement was kind of broken around that time period. But yeah, so Mighty Mouse. Let's talk about Mighty Mouse and the legacy of Ralph Bakshi and why, for one, this series is important, and what the industry gets from having Ralph as part of it.
Well, this series is one of those that had a lot of creative team work on it, and a lot of people found their foundation here. Yeah.
So Jendi Tartakovsky, you've got not Craig McCracken. Was it Craig McCracken? You've definitely got several of the current power players, the bigger names in the animation industry.
Rich Moore,
oh yeah, so,
Vicky Jensen, Jeff Pigeon, David Marshall,
Kenny Tartovsky, is that the one?
Gendy Tartakovsky. Yeah.
He pretty much gave half of 90s TV animation its first gig on Mighty Mouse.
Yeah,
got them
which
to develop their own styles. Yeah.
Something to be said about a simple animation premise, getting a whole bunch of animators work for, and then creating a stepping stone for them to go bigger in the industry. Ralph was definitely that filmmaker. The idea that you take care of the people around you. I think that has a lot to do with his ghetto upbringing, his family fleeing from Palestine, and he kind of, whether he's financially taking care of the people that work for him, that's a different thing, but he's definitely supporting getting them out there in the world, and pushing them to become animators and take things bigger and brighter and things, and the fact that a lot of the current elder statesmen of animation are people who grew out of Ralph Bakshi's stuff rather than Disney or Warner's.
Definitely. It's like, I think there's a really good case to make for that. I think there was a very sharp edge to a lot of the 90s kid cartoon animations, ranging from things from like Ren and Stimpy and stuff like that. You can see echoes of all the old subversive underground stuff, just modernized to the 90s.
Yeah, and Mighty Mouse, I think, ends up a year before Ren and Stimpy, so it's really was the first one breaking that fourth wall in a children's cartoon, but being more adult.
I'm taking a day off if we do a John Kay episode.
Yeah. Oh. I think we'll just be better.
Someone else,
be much
someone else can do that.
Yeah, I think so. You can't deny its influence, but it's problematic, and broke the ice
back
again,
to Mighty Mouse, and look, as a director, he was one of those that really kind of trusted his younger staff to get it done. Sometimes just shoving a load of work at them and going, "Hey, get it going. I don't care how.
I don't care how you do it. Just do it." Yeah.
I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm not going to be there looking at your different sketches and pencil line drawings, because that's not what I want. I just want it done and dusted. So he gave me the freedom to fail, and he gave me the ability to innovate.
They found their own voice, basically.
And many of them did. Yeah. Well, some of the things that grew out of that, like Bruce Timm's pin-up style developed out of that, and Jendi Tartakovsky is very much his early stuff, like Dexter's Lab feels very Terry Toons. And, you've got an underlying legacy there, which is really, really important. I'd go so far to say that Ralph was one of my favorite animators, even though a lot of his work is definitely something that grates against my personal tastes and morals as well. So yeah, he's a strange character in that.
I guess that's kind of what we need, don't we? We need those characters in filmmaking. Those people that'll bring in a different voice to the mix, and those sort of mavericks and occasionally shysters. That will get things done on very little budget.
Yeah. There was an interview I saw.
Roger Corman would be the live action version, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
There was an interview I saw with him, which was like a panel interview in front of a whole bunch of students, and a student stood up and asked him, "So how do you get a film made? We don't know how to go for funding or anything like that." And Ralph sort of stops, straightens up the microphone, and says, "Look to your left and your right, and pick 3-4 different people, and decide to make something together and stick to it."
Yes.
And that just speaks to me as someone who has done that a couple of times, and I'm never going to be as successful in the animation industry as Ralph has been. But I really like that. Try and find the animators around you, do guerrilla animation, and just dive in, create stuff together. That's where I'm happiest. So.
Yes. Well, I think we should leave it there. I think.
Yeah.
That's a really good concluding remark, I think.
Which made me think, because as we were discussing, I had not considered what to talk about next month at all for the last month. Like, I've been trying to take notes on Ralph Bakshi and thinking and going back and reading stuff, and I actually cited a lot of reference because of that whole thing of his stories
unreliable narrative.
Unreliable narrative, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But maybe, just maybe, we can potentially look at another old school animator who made just as much of an impact in Harryhausen.
Ooh, very different technique. I like it.
Stop motion, yes. Hollywood creature features have not gotten over Harryhausen.
I've
met the guy for real. He's cool. Through his suitcase.
It came to me while we were just talking about Fire and Ice, and I was thinking, yes, I because Clash of the Titans flashed into my brain, and I thought, yeah, we definitely need to talk about the cultural impact of Ray Harryhausen, especially in terms of where, like the 80s stop motion animators like Phil Tippett and Stan Winston's special effects, and that leading into modern CG animation. And definitely you can talk about that, Lindsay, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I think so. You look at Jurassic Park, and it's the ultimate Ray Harryhausen film. The way the dinosaurs are staged, the way they do their obligatory, roar for the camera, all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's all filtered.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Should we take it from the Lost World to the Lost World? I guess we could do both.
What's the one with the giant lizard eating a city that ended up becoming the inspiration for Godzilla? Although I think that's pushing a line a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But because we could talk about
we could set up
a zillion Godzilla fans just started stomping on your grave, Lindsay Flay.
Come at me, bros. No. I think what happened was it was the catalyst that it ignited something that was already brewing in deep and dark in Japan. Because the idea of Godzilla is, I think, very much a Japanese thing, and it's like a giant lizard eating a city just kind of helped crystallize it. And we know exactly what they're doing. We can talk about
that another time. Let's talk about that next month. And let's say
let's see if we can pull in a stop motion animator to help us talk about that as well. So
see if I can find me some time for that. I guess I'll be talking about some of that stuff.
It's your turn. Your turn to make notes, Lindsay Flay.
Yeah. Yeah. So see, Ralph Bakshi, I basically got exposed to because I was a bit of a fan at the time in my younger days of the underground comic scene without really knowing too much about it. And via Robert Crumb and some art books on comic book art, that's how I discovered Ralph Bakshi had made Fritz the Cat. And then from that, I followed Fritz the Cat and then discovered, Wizards. He did Wizards, right? There's that sort of underground comic style in cartoon form. And then I remember Steve Grant. Do you remember Steve Grant? Still working?
Yes.
Still doing stuff? I worked with him
Steve,
briefly for a couple
even
of weeks.
Watching us? Like, Steve, do you watch us? Tell us, do you watch us?
Hi, Steve, if you're watching.
Yeah.
Good to see you again, or at least hear from you again.
And
basically, I remember him
he'll be
texting
us shortly to say, stop mentioning my name.
Yes. He was waxing lyrical back in the 80s as a burgeoning animator, working briefly at Fox Creative in Leadable, which was very much a, I wouldn't call Marius Ralph Bakshi by any means, but he was waxing lyrical about Mighty Mouse and this sort of new style that was suddenly emerging and exploding and all this great talent that was turning up there. Here we are, 40 years later. It's come and become the venerable background of our cartoon lives. It's good. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, once again, we've gone well over our hour.
Yes. And then some.
However, it was an interesting topic, and I'm happy to talk about it.
I think so.
That being said, we should all sign off. So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from them. Catch you later, kids.
See ya. Okay.
Great stuff.
Bye.
See you around.